The alarm bells rang through the monitoring station like angry wasps. Commander Jake Morrison jumped from his chair and ran to the main control panel. His coffee spilled across the floor, but he did not care. The screens showed something that should not exist. A human ship was moving through the forbidden zone. Jake stared at the readings. His hands shook as he checked the sensors again and again. The ship looked real on some screens but appeared like a ghost on others. Sometimes it was there. Sometimes it was not. The energy readings made no sense at all. "Lisa, get over here," Jake called to his communications officer. Lisa Parker was young but smart. She knew how to work the fancy equipment better than anyone else on the station. Lisa ran to her station and started working. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. "I am getting readings, but they keep changing," she said. "The ship shows up as human technology, but some of the energy patterns are way too advanced." Jake looked at the identification beacon. His face went white. "Lisa, look at this timestamp. According to this, the ship was built 50 years from now." Lisa stopped working and stared at the screen. "That cannot be right. How can a ship come from the future?" The forbidden zone stretched out before them like a dark wound in space. No ship had entered it for 3,000 years. The ancient race that lived there long ago had done terrible experiments. They tried to break the walls between different realities. The experiments went wrong and tore holes in space itself. Now strange things happened in that region. Ships disappeared. Time moved wrong. Reality bent and twisted like hot metal. Galactic Council had put warning beacons all around the zone. Every species knew to stay away. But somehow a human ship was flying right through the middle of it. "Try to contact them," Jake ordered. Lisa worked her magic on the communication system. Static filled the air, then a voice came through. It sounded strange, like several people talking at the same time. "This is Captain Ryan Bell of the USS Defiance. Can anyone hear me?" Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Commander Morrison at Monitoring Station 7. Captain Bell, you are in the Forbidden Zone. You need to leave immediately." The voice that came back was broken and unclear. "Morrison? Station 7? We are trying to get out, but something is wrong with space here. Everything keeps changing. One minute we see stars, the next minute we see nothing but darkness." Lisa worked to clean up the signal. The voice became clearer, but it still had those strange echoes. "Captain Bell, what is your mission? How did you get into the zone?" "We were on a routine deep space patrol," Captain Bell replied. "We detected what looked like a distress signal and followed it. Then space just grabbed us and pulled us in. My instruments are going crazy. They show we are in 17 different places at the same time." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. He had studied the reports about the Forbidden Zone. Ships that got caught in the space-time distortions usually never came out. Those that did were changed in terrible ways. He activated the emergency protocols and sent a message to the Galactic Council. Within hours, the response came back. Admiral Zextar of the Hegemony Fleet would investigate with a full battle group. Jake did not like Admiral Zextar. The alien was suspicious of humans and always thought they were planning something bad. Zextar belonged to a species that remembered everything. They never forgot that humans were newcomers to galactic politics. They never forgot that humans had a habit of doing unexpected things that made other species nervous. While they waited for the Admiral, Jake and Lisa kept trying to understand what was happening to the USS Defiance. The ship appeared on their screens in different ways every few minutes. Sometimes it looked like a normal human vessel with basic weapons and simple engines. Other times it showed advanced technology that humans would not develop for decades. "Captain Bell, can you tell us more about your ship?" Jake asked during one clear communication window. "The Defiance is a standard exploration vessel," came the reply. "But something happened when we entered this region. My engineer says our quantum signature is unstable. We exist in multiple states at the same time." Lisa looked confused. "What does that mean?" Jake had studied quantum physics in the academy. "It means the ship is real and not real at the same time, like a coin that is spinning in the air. Until it lands, it is both heads and tails." But this was different. This was not a coin. This was a whole ship with a crew of human beings. Hours passed. Admiral Zextar arrived with 12 warships. His fleet formed a circle around the edge of the Forbidden Zone, but they did not enter. Even the Admiral was not brave enough to fly into that cursed region. Admiral Zextar contacted the monitoring station. His voice was cold and mechanical through the translator. "Commander Morrison, I want all data on this human vessel." Jake sent the files. He knew the Admiral would not like what he saw. The readings were too strange, too impossible. "This must be some kind of human trick," Admiral Zextar announced after reviewing the data. "No ship can exist in multiple quantum states. The humans are using advanced technology to confuse our sensors." "With respect, Admiral," Jake replied, "our sensors show the same impossible readings. If this is a trick, it is beyond anything humans have ever done before." During the night shift, Lisa made a discovery. She was running deeper scans on the USS Defiance when she noticed something. The ship was not just flickering between real and unreal. It was flickering between different versions of itself. "Commander," she called Jake to her station, "look at this. Each time the ship appears, it is slightly different. The hull markings change. The weapon configurations change. Even the crew size changes." Jake studied the data. Lisa was right. Sometimes the ship showed a crew of 200 people. Sometimes it showed only 50. The ship itself seemed to grow and shrink like a living thing. As dawn broke over the monitoring station, one thing became clear. The USS Defiance was not just trapped in the Forbidden Zone. It was trapped between different realities. Each version of the ship came from a different timeline where different choices had been made. The question that kept Jake awake was simple but terrifying. If multiple versions of the same ship could exist at once, what would happen when they tried to become real again? Would one timeline survive? Would they all collapse into nothing? And most important of all, could the human crew find a way home without destroying everything around them? Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped off the transport ship and onto Monitoring Station 7. She was the best scientist the Galactic Council had for studying time and space problems. Her bags were full of equipment that most people could not even pronounce, let alone understand. Jake Morrison met her at the docking bay. "Doctor, thank you for coming so quickly. The situation is getting worse." Elena nodded. She had read the reports during her journey. A human ship existing in multiple realities at once was not just unusual. It was impossible, according to everything science knew about the universe. They walked to the main control room where Lisa Parker was still working at her station. The young woman had not slept in 36 hours, but her eyes were bright with curiosity instead of tiredness. "Show me everything," Elena said. Lisa pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. Elena studied the readings with growing amazement. The USS Defiance appeared as 17 different ships, all occupying the same space but in different quantum states. It was like looking at 17 photographs of the same person, all slightly different, all stacked on top of each other. "This should not be possible," Elena whispered. "The quantum mathematics alone would require energy levels beyond what any civilization has achieved." Jake activated the communication system. "Captain Bell, we have Dr. Rodriguez here. She is our expert on these kinds of problems." The voice that came back was clearer now than it had been before. Elena had brought better communication equipment. "Doctor, can you help us? My crew is scared. Strange things are happening on the ship." "Captain, I need you to describe exactly what you and your crew are experiencing," Elena said into the microphone. "We see different versions of our own ship when we look out the windows," Captain Bell replied. "My engineer Tony Martinez says the engine room exists in several different configurations at the same time. Sometimes we have basic fusion engines. Sometimes we have engines that use technology I have never seen before." Elena made notes on her tablet. "What about your crew? Do they experience any changes?" "Yes. People remember things that never happened. My medical officer, Dr. Sam Turner, says he remembers treating injuries from battles we never fought. My science officer, Kate Johnson, has knowledge about alien species we have never encountered." This was getting more interesting by the minute. Elena had studied theoretical physics for 40 years, but she had never seen anything like this in real life. Meanwhile, Admiral Zextar was growing impatient. His fleet remained in position around the Forbidden Zone, but he did not like waiting. His species, the hegemony, believed in quick action and clear solutions. This human mystery was neither quick nor clear. Dr. Rodriguez, the Admiral's voice, came over the communication system. How long will this investigation take? My ships cannot remain here forever. Elena looked at Jake and shook her head. Admiral, this is the most complex quantum event ever recorded. We need time to understand what is happening before we can fix it. Fix it? Admiral Zextar sounded angry. Perhaps the solution is simpler. Destroy the human ship before it causes more problems. Admiral, destroying the ship could be catastrophic, Elena replied quickly. If 17 versions of the same vessel collapse suddenly, the energy release could damage spacetime in this entire sector. While the Admiral considered this, Elena worked with Lisa to establish better contact with the USS Defiance. She wanted to speak with the ship's crew directly to understand their experience. Captain Bell, I want to talk to your engineer and your science officer, Elena said. After a few minutes, new voices came through the speakers. Tony Martinez, the chief engineer, sounded worried. Doctor, our ship is changing every few hours. Sometimes I have engines I designed. Sometimes I have engines that someone else built. But I remember building all of them. Kate Johnson, the science officer, was more excited than scared. Dr. Rodriguez, this is incredible. I have memories from 17 different timelines. In some of them, humans met the Galactic Council 50 years earlier. In others, we developed faster-than-light travel through completely different methods. Elena felt a chill. Kate, in any of these timelines, do you remember what happened to the Galactic Council? There was a long pause. When Kate spoke again, her voice was quiet and scared. In several timelines, the Council was destroyed. An unknown force attacked the core worlds. The USS Defiance was one of the ships that escaped. Elena looked at Jake with wide eyes. If this was true, then the ship was not just trapped between realities. It was possibly carrying refugees from timelines where their entire civilization had been wiped out. She spent the next several hours analyzing the quantum signatures from each version of the USS Defiance. The mathematics were incredible. Each timeline had branched from their current reality at different points in history. Some had split off decades ago. Others had diverged centuries in the past. Lisa, look at this, Elena said, pointing to her calculations. The ship is not just existing in multiple states. It is serving as a bridge between all these different realities. The quantum energy from all 17 timelines is flowing through the same point in space. Lisa studied the data. What does that mean for our reality? It means the USS Defiance is holding 17 different versions of history together. If the ship disappears suddenly, all that quantum energy has to go somewhere. Jake understood the implication immediately. You mean it could change our timeline too? Possibly. Or it could tear a hole in reality that would make the original damage to the Forbidden Zone look small. Elena continued her research through the night. She discovered that the ancient civilization that had originally damaged this region of space had been trying to do something similar. They wanted to access parallel realities and take resources from other timelines. But their experiments had gone wrong and created the space-time wounds that still existed today. The USS Defiance had accidentally accomplished what the ancient race had failed to do safely. But the ship was unstable. Elena's calculations showed that without intervention, the quantum bridge would eventually collapse on its own. When it did, the energy release would be enormous. Captain Bell, Elena called to the ship. I need to ask you something very important. In the timelines where the Galactic Council was destroyed, what do you remember about how it happened? Captain Bell's voice carried the weight of terrible memories. In some timelines, it was a war with an unknown enemy. In others, it was internal, conflict between member species. But in 3 of the timelines, it was caused by experiments with quantum technology that went wrong. Elena felt her blood turn cold. The USS Defiance was not just trapped by the ancient experiments. It was trapped by quantum experiments that would happen in the future. The ship existed at the center of a loop in time where cause and effect had become tangled together. Doctor, Captain Bell continued, There is something else. In several timelines, our ship was supposed to prevent the disaster. We were carrying information that could save the Council, but we got trapped here before we could deliver it. Elena realized the full scope of the problem. The USS Defiance was not just a ship caught in a quantum accident. It was a ship that existed in 17 different timelines, because in each timeline, it had tried to prevent a different version of the same catastrophe. The ship was real. All 17 versions were real. And somehow, the fate of not just their timeline but multiple possible futures depended on finding a way to help Captain Bell and his crew choose which reality they wanted to make permanent. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began with chaos. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber, all talking at once. News of the human ship had spread across known space like wildfire, and everyone had opinions about what should be done. Representative Clax of the Trade Federation slammed his 6 arms on his desk. This is obviously a human plot. They send a fake ship into the Forbidden Zone to gain access to ancient technology. We must destroy it immediately. Counselor Yeath of the Science Directorate rose from her seat. Her blue skin shimmered with anger. Destroying the ship could cause massive damage to local spacetime. We need to study this phenomenon, not blast it into atoms. The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted military action. Others demanded more investigation. A few suggested that humans should be banned from deep space travel entirely. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Cox received the Council's official notification at 3 in the morning. She was a tough woman who had fought in the border wars and survived 3 assassination attempts. But as she read the report about the USS Defiance, she felt confused for the first time in decades. "Sir, we have a problem," her aide said as he handed her more documents. "According to our records, no ship named USS Defiance has ever been built. Captain Ryan Bell does not exist in any of our databases. The crew names match no personnel files." Patricia stared at the papers. "Then whose ship is it?" "We do not know, sir. But the technology is definitely human. The design philosophy, the energy signatures, even the communication protocols match our standards." Patricia activated her secure communication line to monitoring. Station 7. "Commander Morrison, this is Admiral Cox. I need to speak with the crew of this mystery ship." Jake Morrison set up the connection. When Captain Bell's voice came through, Patricia listened carefully. The man sounded like a professional, military officer. His speech patterns and terminology were exactly what she would expect from a human captain. "Captain Bell, this is Admiral Cox of Earth Defense Command. I need you to explain how your ship exists when our records show it was never built." The reply came with those strange quantum echoes that everyone had noticed. "Admiral, according to our records, you retired 15 years ago after the Titan colony incident. But I can see from your voice that you are still active duty." Patricia felt ice in her stomach. The Titan colony incident had been classified at the highest levels. Only a dozen people knew the real details. "Captain, how do you know about Titan?" "Because in my timeline, you were the hero who saved the colony. In another timeline, you died in the attack. I have memories from multiple realities where different versions of history happened." Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued her work at the monitoring station, trying to understand the quantum mechanics of the situation. She had established direct communication with Lieutenant Kate Johnson, the science officer aboard the USS Defiance.
"Kate, I need you to describe what you see when you look at your own ship systems," Elena said. "It is like looking at 17 different ships that are all somehow the same ship," Kate replied. "In some configurations, we have basic human
technology. In others, we have advanced systems that incorporate alien designs. I remember learning about those alien technologies, but I also remember that we never encountered those species." Elena made more notes. The quantum signatures were becoming clearer. Each version of the USS Defiance came from a timeline where humanity had made different choices and encountered different alien species. "Kate, in the timelines where the Galactic Council was destroyed, what was the cause?" Kate's voice became sad. "In Timeline 7, it was a war with a species called the Devourers. In Timeline 12, member species fought each other over quantum technology. In Timeline 15, an experiment with parallel reality access went wrong and erased 3 entire star systems. Elena shared this information with Jake and Lisa. The implications were terrifying. If the USS Defiance existed because it was trying to prevent multiple versions of galactic catastrophe, then its presence in their timeline might mean their reality was also in danger. Meanwhile, Admiral Zextar was losing patience. His fleet had been holding position for 3 days and his crew was getting nervous. The hegemony species did not like mysteries. They preferred enemies they could see and threats they could shoot. Dr. Rodriguez, Admiral Zextar, contacted the monitoring station. My tactical officers report that quantum disturbances are spreading from the Forbidden Zone. If this continues, the instability could affect nearby systems. Elena checked her instruments. The Admiral was right. The presence of the USS Defiance was causing small tears in space-time throughout the region. They were tiny now, but they were growing. Admiral, I need more time to find a solution, Elena replied. You have 6 hours, Admiral Zextar said. After that, I will consider the human ship a threat to galactic security. Elena worked frantically with the crew of the USS Defiance to understand their options. Captain Bell gathered his senior officers for a meeting that Elena could monitor through the quantum communication link. Tony, what would happen if we tried to force our ship back to a single timeline? Captain Bell asked his engineer, Tony Martinez, reviewed his readings. Captain, we would have to choose which version of reality we want to exist in. The energy required would be enormous, and there is no guarantee we would choose correctly. Dr. Sam Turner, the medical officer, spoke up. Captain, I have been monitoring the crew's condition. The longer we exist in multiple states, the more unstable our quantum patterns become. Some crew members are starting to remember things that contradict each other. It is affecting their mental health. Kate Johnson had been running calculations on her science station. Captain, I think I found something important. In every timeline where the galactic catastrophe happened, there was one common factor. What factor? Captain Bell asked. In every case, the disaster began when someone tried to use quantum technology to change the past. The experiments always failed, but they damaged the structure of space-time itself. Elena heard this through the communication link and felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together. Kate, are you saying that the USS Defiance exists in multiple timelines because those timelines are all connected to the same point in history? Exactly. Every timeline where catastrophe occurred had ships like ours trying to go back and prevent it. But instead of changing the past, they created quantum bridges to parallel realities. Elena realized what this meant. The USS Defiance was not trapped by accident. It was trapped because it represented the universe's attempt to heal itself. By existing in multiple timelines simultaneously, the ship was keeping all the possible disasters contained in one location. But this also meant that if the ship chose the wrong timeline to exist in, it could trigger the very catastrophe it was trying to prevent. Captain Bell, Elena said over the communication system, I think I understand what happened to your ship. You are not just trapped between realities. You are the key to preventing multiple versions of galactic destruction. What do you mean? Captain Bell asked. Your ship exists in 17 timelines, because in each timeline something went wrong. By bringing all those possibilities together in one place, you have created a chance to choose a better outcome. Elena looked at her calculations one more time. The mathematics were complex, but the conclusion was clear. The USS Defiance could collapse back into a single timeline, but only if they chose carefully. If they picked a timeline where catastrophe was inevitable, they would bring that disaster into their current reality. The question was, how could they know which timeline was safe? Admiral Zextar's deadline was approaching fast. Elena had to find an answer soon, or the Admiral would make the choice for them by destroying the ship. But destroying the USS Defiance might be exactly what would trigger the galactic catastrophe they were trying to prevent. Admiral Zextar stared at the tactical display in his command center. Red warning lights blinked across the screen as sensors detected new quantum disturbances forming throughout the Forbidden Zone. The space around the human ship was becoming more unstable every hour. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, Long-range sensors show quantum tiers opening in 7 different locations. If this continues, the instability could spread to inhabited systems. Admiral Zextar had fought in 12 major conflicts during his career. He understood warfare and clear threats. But this situation with the human ship was different. The enemy was not another fleet or army. The enemy was reality itself coming apart at the seams. "Sir, should we charge weapons?" his weapons officer asked. The admiral considered his options. The Galactic Council had told him to investigate, not attack. But his first duty was to protect galactic civilization. If destroying one human ship could prevent disaster for billions of beings, the choice was obvious. "Charge all weapons," Admiral Zextar commanded. "Target the human vessel. If Dr. Rodriguez cannot find a solution in the next hour, we will end this threat permanently." On Monitoring Station 7, Elena Rodriguez detected the Admiral's fleet powering up their weapons. Her instruments showed massive energy buildups on all 12 hegemony warships. Time was running out faster than she had expected. "Jake, contact Admiral Zextar immediately," Elena said. "Tell him that destroying the ship could make everything worse." Commander Jake Morrison opened a communication channel. "Admiral Dr. Rodriguez wants to speak with you urgently." "Dr. Rodriguez." Admiral Zextar's voice was cold and final. "You have had 3 days to solve this problem. The quantum disturbances are spreading. I will not risk galactic security for one human ship." "Admiral, please listen," Elena said quickly. "If you destroy the USS Defiance while it exists in multiple quantum states, you could trigger a cascade failure. The energy release would tear holes in space-time across this entire sector." "That is a risk I am willing to take," Admiral Zextar replied. "Better one damaged sector than galaxy-wide catastrophe." Elena realized that military logic would not work with the Admiral. She needed to try a different approach. "Admiral, what if the human ship can actually fix the problems instead of causing them?" Before Admiral Zextar could answer, Captain Ryan Bell's voice came over the communication system. The quantum echoes had changed. Instead of 17 overlapping voices, there was now just one clear, strong voice. "Admiral Zextar, this is Captain Bell. I know you consider me a threat, but I want to offer you a deal." Admiral Zextar was surprised. Human psychology had always confused him. Most species would beg for mercy when facing overwhelming firepower. But this human captain sounded calm and confident. "What kind of deal?" Admiral Zextar asked. "My ship exists in 17 different timelines," Captain Bell explained. "In each timeline I have seen different versions of galactic history. I know which choices led to disaster and which choices led to peace. If you give me time to stabilize our quantum state, I can choose a timeline that benefits everyone." "How do I know you will choose correctly?" Admiral Zextar demanded. "Because," Captain Bell said, "in 13 of the 17 timelines, the catastrophe that destroyed the Galactic Council was caused by someone making decisions based on fear instead of trust." Elena listened to this exchange with growing understanding. Captain Bell was not just offering to fix his own ship's problem. He was offering to use his knowledge of multiple timelines to prevent the mistakes that had led to disaster in other realities. On the USS Defiance, Captain Bell gathered his crew in the main conference room. The quantum distortions had stabilized, enough that they could meet in one location without flickering between different versions of themselves. "Tony, what is the status of the quantum collapse procedure?" Captain Bell asked his engineer. Tony Martinez looked at his readings. "Captain, we can force our ship to exist in only one timeline, but the process will require enormous energy. We will need to channel power from all 17 versions of our ship at the same time." Dr. Sam Turner raised a concern. "Captain, the crew is experiencing increasing mental stress from existing in multiple states. Some people are having trouble distinguishing between memories from different timelines. We need to make a decision soon." Lieutenant Kate Johnson had been working on the scientific aspects of their situation. "Captain, I have been analyzing the quantum signatures of each timeline. I think I can identify which timeline would be safest for us to exist in." "Explain," Captain Bell said. "The timelines where galactic catastrophe occurred all have one thing in common," Kate said. In each case, the disaster was triggered by someone trying to use advanced technology to solve problems through force instead of cooperation. Captain Bell understood immediately. You mean the catastrophes happened when people chose military solutions instead of diplomatic ones? Exactly. The timeline where we have the best chance of preventing disaster is the one where humans and aliens work together to solve problems instead of fighting each other. Captain Bell made his decision. It was the kind of choice that defined human nature in the eyes of other species. Instead of choosing the timeline where humanity was strongest, or most advanced, he would choose the timeline where cooperation was strongest. Tony, begin the quantum collapse procedure. Kate, guide us to the timeline where human-alien cooperation is at its highest level. Captain, Tony warned, this process will be incredibly dangerous. We are essentially choosing which version of reality becomes real while erasing 16 other possibilities. I understand the risk, Captain Bell replied. But we came out here to explore and make contact with other species. If we can use our situation to create a better future for everyone, that is what we should do. Elena watched from her monitoring station as the USS Defiance began to change. The 17 different quantum signatures slowly started merging into one. The process was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Reality itself was being rewritten around the human ship. But something unexpected happened as the quantum collapse continued. Instead of just choosing one timeline and erasing the others, the USS Defiance began channeling energy from all 17 realities into repairing the damaged space-time around it. The ancient wounds in the Forbidden Zone, caused by experiments 3,000 years ago, began to heal as quantum energy from multiple timelines flowed into them. The ship was not just saving itself, it was fixing problems that had existed for millennia. Admiral Zextar watched his sensor displays with amazement. The quantum disturbances that had been spreading throughout the sector were reversing. Instead of tiers in space-time getting bigger, they were closing up and disappearing. Tactical Officer report, Admiral Zextar commanded. Sir, the quantum instability is decreasing rapidly. Space-time is actually becoming more stable than it was before the human ship arrived. Admiral Zextar had to make a quick decision. His weapons were still charged and ready to fire. He could still destroy the human ship if he wanted to. But the evidence suggested that Captain Bell was doing exactly what he had promised. The human was fixing problems instead of causing them. Stand down weapons, Admiral Zextar ordered. Continue monitoring, but do not fire unless the situation changes. As the quantum collapse reached its final phase, Captain Bell opened communication channels to both the monitoring station and Admiral Zextar's fleet. Dr. Rodriguez, Admiral Zextar, the process is almost complete, Captain Bell announced. We will exist in only one timeline within the next hour. But before we finish, we want to share something with you. What do you want to share? Elena asked. Knowledge, Captain Bell replied. We have information from 17 different timelines about what works and what does not work for galactic civilization. We want to give this information to the Council so they can make better choices in the future. Admiral Zextar realized what the human captain was offering. It was not just data about technology or military tactics. It was wisdom about how different species could live and work together successfully. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zextar began to understand why humans were so unpredictable. They did not just think about what was good for their own species. They thought about what was good for everyone. The final moments of the quantum collapse were like watching a miracle happen in slow motion. On every sensor screen at Monitoring Station 7, the USS Defiance slowly became solid and real. The 17 ghostly images that had been overlapping for days merged into one clear, definite ship. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched her instruments with tears in her eyes. The mathematics were perfect. The quantum signatures had stabilized completely. The ship now existed in only one timeline, but it carried with it the memories and knowledge from all 17 parallel realities. Captain Bell, report your status, Elena said into her microphone. The voice that came back was clear and strong without any of the strange echoes they had heard for days. Dr. Rodriguez, this is Captain Bell. The USS Defiance is stable and operating normally. All crew members are healthy and accounted for. But something even more amazing was happening in the space around the ship. The ancient wounds in the Forbidden Zone were healing at an incredible rate. For 3,000 years, this region of space had been twisted and broken. Now, quantum energy from 17 different timelines was flowing into the damaged areas and repairing them. Commander Jake Morrison stared at his displays in wonder. Elena, look at this. The space-time distortions are disappearing. The entire Forbidden Zone is becoming stable again. Elena checked her readings. Jake was right. The healing process was happening faster than anyone could have imagined. Within hours, the sector would be completely normal for the first time in 3 millennia. Admiral Zextar contacted the monitoring station. His voice had changed from cold suspicion to amazed respect. Dr. Rodriguez, my sensors confirm what you are seeing. The humans have not only solved their own problem, they have fixed damage that we thought was permanent. Admiral Captain Bell wants to speak with you, Elena replied. A moment later, Captain Bell's voice came over the communication system. Admiral Zextar, I want to thank you for not destroying my ship. I know it would have been the easier choice. Admiral Zextar was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his words surprised everyone who heard them. Captain Bell, I owe you an apology. I was wrong to suspect your intentions. What you have accomplished here shows wisdom beyond anything my species has achieved. Admiral, we want to offer you something, Captain Bell said. We have complete records from 17 different timelines. We know which diplomatic approaches worked and which ones failed. We know which technologies helped species cooperate and which ones caused conflicts. This knowledge could prevent many future problems. Elena realized what Captain Bell was offering. It was the most valuable gift imaginable, a guide to making better decisions based on seeing the results of those decisions in parallel realities. The crew of the USS Defiance worked through the night to compile their data. Lieutenant Kate Johnson organized the scientific information. Engineer Tony Martinez documented the technological developments. Dr. Sam Turner prepared medical data that could help many species improve their health care. Captain Bell focused on the diplomatic and political information. He had memories from 17 timelines where different approaches to galactic governance had been tried. Some had led to peace and prosperity. Others had led to war and destruction. Kate, how much data do we have? Captain Bell asked his science officer. Captain, we have complete records covering over 200 years of alternate history across 17 different timelines. The information includes scientific discoveries, technological developments, diplomatic agreements, trade policies, and cultural exchanges. Dr. Sam Turner looked up from his work. Captain, the medical data alone could advance galactic healthcare by decades. In several timelines, different species shared medical knowledge that led to cures for diseases that still exist in our reality. Tony. Martinez was excited about the engineering data. Captain, we have blueprints for technologies that combine the best ideas from multiple species. In Timeline 9, humans and the crystalline beings of Vega work together to create energy systems that are completely clean and incredibly efficient. When the data compilation was complete, Captain Bell sent it to both Monitoring Station 7 and Admiral Zextar's fleet. The files were enormous, containing detailed information about every aspect of galactic civilization from 17 different parallel realities. Elena spent hours reviewing just a small portion of the data. What she saw amazed her. In the timelines, where species worked together instead of competing, everyone benefited. Technologies developed faster. Conflicts were resolved peacefully. Even natural disasters were handled more effectively through cooperation. Jake, this information is incredible, Elena said to Commander Morrison. Look at this data about asteroid mining. In Timeline 14, 3 different species shared their techniques and increased production by 400%, while reducing environmental damage to 0. Jake studied the reports. Elena, this could change everything. Instead of each species developing technology separately, we could combine our knowledge and solve problems faster. The Galactic Council called another emergency session, but this time the mood was completely different. Instead of arguing about what to do with the human ship, representatives were eager to study the data Captain Bell had shared. Representative Clax of the Trade Federation was the first to speak. This information shows trade relationships that could benefit all our species. In several timelines, cooperation led to prosperity levels we have never imagined. Counselor Yith of the Science Directorate was even more excited. The scientific data contains research that could take us centuries to develop on our own. We have discoveries here that solve problems we did not even know existed. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Cox received a complete copy of the timeline data. She spent 3 days reviewing the military and diplomatic information. What she learned changed her understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The humans in these alternate timelines made different choices than we have made, she told her staff. In some cases, they were more aggressive and caused problems. In other cases, they were more cooperative and helped solve galactic conflicts. What does this mean for our current policies? Her aide asked. It means we have a chance to learn from the mistakes and successes of 17 different versions of ourselves, Admiral Cox replied. We can choose to follow the paths that led to peace and avoid the paths that led to war. The healing of the Forbidden Zone continued for several more days. As the ancient wounds closed completely, something beautiful happened. New stars began to form in the region where space-time had been damaged. The quantum energy from multiple timelines was not just repairing the damage. It was creating new possibilities for life and growth. Dr. Elena Rodriguez published her final report about the USS Defiance incident. Her conclusions were simple but profound. The human ship had been completely real, existing in 17 different quantum states simultaneously. But what made it truly remarkable was not the science behind it. It was the choice Captain Bell and his crew made to use their situation to help others instead of just saving themselves. Admiral Zexitar requested permission to escort the USS Defiance back to human space. His report to the Hegemony High Command was the first time in his career that he had recommended cooperation with another species instead of competition. The humans have shown us something important, Admiral Zexitar wrote. True strength comes not from having the best weapons or the most advanced technology. True strength comes from being willing to risk everything to help others. As the USS Defiance prepared to leave the former Forbidden Zone, Captain Bell made one final communication to Monitoring Station 7 and Admiral Zexitar's fleet. Thank you all for giving us the chance to prove that we came in peace, Captain Bell said. We hope the information we have shared will help create a better future for all species. Elena Rodriguez watched on her sensors as the human ship flew away toward Earth. The space where the Forbidden Zone had existed was now filled with new stars and young solar systems. What had been a wound in the universe had become a birthplace for new worlds and new possibilities. The question of whether the USS Defiance had been real was finally answered. It had been more than real. It had been 17 different versions of real, all existing at the same time, all carrying the hopes and dreams of parallel humanities who had faced impossible choices. But the more important question had also been answered. Did humanity deserve its place among the stars? The crew of the USS Defiance had shown that humans were capable of choosing cooperation over conflict, healing over destruction, and hope over fear. As Elena finished her final report, she realized that the USS Defiance had given the galaxy something more valuable than just scientific data. It had given everyone proof that even in the darkest situations, there was always a choice to make things better instead of worse. The human ship had entered the Forbidden Zone as a mystery. It left as a symbol of what was possible when different species chose to trust each other instead of fear each other.